Deciding to study abroad in Mexico was one of the best decisions I could have made in terms of my college experience and then also as a social work major. Coming to Mexico and learning about the many different cultures within the country and the diversity here has made me rethink what I know about the U.S. and what I know about U.S. culture and the various cultures within the U.S. Coming here made me step out of my comfort zone, and I think that's really important, especially as a social work major, because it makes you rethink things, and it makes you rethink the values that you've had and the biases and different opinions on issues that you have. And I think as a social work major, that's extremely important because you're constantly going to be learning and you're constantly going to be challenged, and being in Mexico has started that and made me realize that it really is a great feeling to continue learning and to realize that you can appreciate and value more things than you already do.
I think it's really important that social workers in the U.S. have the opportunity to come to a program like this, because I think all of us, no matter what section or type of social work we're working in, are going to be working with clients from a lot of different backgrounds. And so to at least be able to have some understanding of this context and what social work looks like in Mexico and in Latin America, even though we don't have a complete picture of it from just one semester here, we at least have more knowledge that I think is really helpful.
I think that my overall experience here in Mexico, or being here with CGE this semester, has been a phenomenal experience. Anything from, I think, academics to the places I've visited and my homestays, I think have all had just a big influence on my learning and my overall growth as a social work student. I think that, more in specific, my social policy and my Mexican context courses have been really helpful. Aside from the assignments that we've had to do, I think that we've been pushed to, send letters to our legislators and senators in the U.S., kind of pushed more to ask more politically challenging questions here.
My favorite class here was the Mexican context class with Ann and Antonio, because we learned so much about the history and the social landscape of Mexico. We also learned a lot about intercultural communication and a lot of different social issues, and so I feel like I learned so much during that one class through all the different speakers and excursions.
One of the speakers that we heard from actually was my host dad from my rural homestay. Here in Mexico we do 2 homestays, one in Cuernavaca with a family for at least 4 weeks, and one in Amatlan, a rural village, for 5 days. And when I was in Amatlan, I learned a ton from my host father, who had various experiences working in Canada and in the U.S., and he shared with all of us his story and experience going to the U.S. as a temporary worker for 9 months. He went to work in a nursery in Virginia, and although he had papers and was there legally, the workers were mistreated and exploited. And hearing Alvaro's personal story, that was extremely touching and was really important to me, because I hadn't had that perspective before. Before coming to Mexico, I knew a little bit about immigration and certain policies, but I didn't have that personal connection to it. And hearing the reasons behind so many people's migration to the U.S. and to other countries is something that needs to be, for me personally, needs to be considered more.
My favorite speaker that we had was Xochitl Ramirez, who was from an organization called ATSIN, which does a lot of work with the community of Tlamakasapa. And just hearing about all that their organization does and how they use the resources within the community to build up the community and empower the people in that community was really powerful to me. And to then go and actually see the community and see some of the project that ATSIN is working on and see some of the community organizers who were at work was really neat.
When we talk about visits or speakers, I think that one of the most influential speakers that I've heard from this whole semester is Marta Delgado. She is a community activist in the Satélite community, which is about, I don't know, like 30 minutes from Semar, around this area. So she talked about the Ejido land and how much the community has done to grow. I think that that is something that is very powerful for me to see, because although she is not a social worker, she doesn't have a supervisor, and she doesn't have anybody that she goes to for advice, she helps the community empower themselves to create a more healthy and more educated environment.
So living here in Mexico has been really fun too. We've lived in all sorts of different places over the semester. We started out living here in these two houses. This is Casa Semal, and across the street is Casa Verde. And so I live across the street. And then we spent a week with our host families in Amatlan, and then came back here and for a week. And then we spent 6 weeks, well, I spent 6 weeks with my host family. Everyone spent at least 4 weeks, and I chose to extend mine to 6 weeks. And I really enjoyed living with my host family and being able to speak Spanish every day and spending time with them and getting to know them. That was a really neat part of my experience, and I feel like I really improved my Spanish through that, and just like learned a lot more about Mexico through that experience. And then since then we've been living back here at Casa Verde and Casa Semal, which is really fun because we all live together and learn together and are able to spend a lot of time hanging out with each other and getting to know each other better, and it's just, for me, it's been a really good environment. And then we've also traveled to Mexico City for a week, and that was really neat to have an exchange there with students from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, from the School of Social Work. So we spent a week there and then came back here. So we've been all over the place, but everywhere we stayed has been a really good experience.
Something that I really, really loved about the program was that almost every Saturday there's an excursion to a different place, semi-close to Cuernavaca. So we went to different cities. We visited Teotihuacan, like the huge pyramids outside of Mexico City. We went on these really cool boat rides, and it's really nice because all the transportation is free, and you don't have to pay anything unless you want to eat something or buy something. And you're able to see different parts of Mexico and get away from Cuernavaca, where you always are and where you're always studying.
I think it's been one of my best semesters that I could have ever imagined. I feel like I've learned so much about Mexico and about social work, both social work in Mexico and social work in the United States, and I don't think I would have otherwise had an opportunity like this. Also, just having the chance to make friends with so many people from this program and from the city that we're in, and all the people that we've met and learned from, has been really amazing. So it's definitely a unique opportunity, and I'm really glad that I took the risk and chose to take it.